Hey everyone, my name is Jeremy Fuel, Superintendent here at Mississinawa Community School Corporation. This presentation is being made August of 2024. This is a public school financing, just a Budget 101 presentation. I want to talk to you about the general basics of how all public school financing works, and then also get into the specifics of our financing here at Mississinawa Community Schools. Okay, so it's just some budget basics for how all schools operate within Indiana, all public schools. Annually, each school board will establish a budget. We're actually in that process right now for the fiscal year of 2025. Right now, August 19th of 2024, we will have our budget workshop. Then come by August 30th, our budgets or the Form 3 will be placed on the Gateway and Corporation websites. September 9th of 2024, we will have a public hearing in regards to the budget for 2025. And then on October 7th, we will adopt the 2025 budget. And so this budget plan for 2025 takes into account all the revenue the school's going to generate, and then what we expect for our expenses to be during 2025. And with that, that's a guide and a framework for us going into the next fiscal year. So that's January 1 of 2025 through December 31st of 2025. That's our budget year for us. So yeah, that's budget basics for all schools within Indiana, all public schools. Okay, so this slide talks a little bit about just budget basics, the key terms to understand. You'll hear me mention a lot of different acronyms. One's DLGF, the Department of Local Government Finance. They're the ones that approve our budgets, public school budgets, and other governmental units, their budgets as well. The DUAB, or the Distressed Units Appeal Board, is another one. One I want you to focus on is the net assessed value, or the NAV. You also hear me referencing it as AV. That is just kind of what all of our property is valued at within our taxing municipality. Maximum levy is another one. Property tax levy, property tax rate is a big one that a lot of people know about. That's that individual percent or per dollar unit that goes on $100 of assessed valuation within the taxing district. Circuit breakers, another key term, and then financial institute taxes, and then commercial excise tax, or CVETs. So those are some key terms. I'm not going to go through them all specifically, but if you want to reference back to the slide, you can to read more in-depth descriptions. Okay, so let's talk about funds specifically for Mississinawa Community School Corporation. So we have 4 buckets of money that we pull from to pay any of our expenses. So one is operations fund, the second is the education fund, the third one is the debt service fund, and fourth is our rainy day fund. Okay, so how are public schools funded in Indiana? There's really 3 buckets of money that generate revenue for school districts. First is your local school support, second is state school support, and third is federal school support. Okay, so local school support, there's a few different ways, 3 actually, that we generate from that generate money into that local school support bucket of revenue. First, and the main one, is property taxes. Then you have your second bucket, which is your license, excise, or CVET taxes, or your financial institutional taxes. And those all filter into the local school support revenue. So from that local school support, primarily property taxes, that then feeds into 2 different funds for us locally. That feeds into our operations fund and our debt service fund. Okay, going a little bit more into specifics with that local school support and property taxes. Property taxes obviously create the largest generator of revenue for school districts. That's a tax. The property taxes is charged against real property, so land and improvements, utilities, and personal property. In order to look at what we get at the school in terms of how much tax levy we get back, the county assessor has to go out and assess the property and establish what is called the net assessed value for all the property. And within districts, if you have a higher net assessed valuation within your district, then your tax rate taxed on that assessed valuation can be lower. If, like for us here at Mississinawa, we have a lower net assessed value, we have less physical property, less value of property, so our tax rate can be a little bit higher. So those work inversely with one another. Okay, going into the operations fund. So we talked about that local property tax or local funding spills into the operations fund and into the debt service fund. So the operations fund, it's broadly used to pay for school corporations' non-classroom expenditures, such as, but not limited to, non-educational staff, so superintendent, maintenance staff, ground staff, transportation director, custodians, bus drivers, central office staff. Also goes into what I say is keeping the lights on, so it pays our utilities, facility and maintenance needs. It's a combination of the former funds that were done away with several years ago that were known as the Transportation Fund, Bus Replacement Fund, and Capital Projects Funds. Those funds are all now encapsulated into what is now known as the Operations Fund. Okay, the other bucket that I want to talk about, or in terms of money that we get from local taxes, is the debt service fund. So we get those local property taxes, goes into the operations fund, also goes into the debt service fund. The debt service fund is a levy to meet our annual debt service obligations. So when we take out any sort of bonding capacity to renovate buildings, do general obligation bonds, or anything to maintain property, I like to think of this as your mortgage payment on a house. So the debt service fund is the fund that is used to meet those bonding payments that are due twice a year for us in most cases. Okay, so as far as that state support or state school support bucket of money, that is known as the education fund for us within public schools. That is fed through a few different avenues of money. First of all, the honors grant, special education grant, CTE grant, and the basic grant. What you need to know is this funding, or all this funding, the majority of this funding is really focused on how many students you have in your district. This is by far the biggest source of revenue that schools get is from the education fund, or our state school support, which goes into that education fund. So what does the education fund support? The education fund is the primary fund through which school corporations pay for classroom expenditures. There is no levy imposed for the educational fund. So there's no local taxes that go to this. This fund is used exclusively to fund student instruction and learning. This is what is used to pay for teachers, instructional assistants, clerical staff within the buildings, building level administrators, all those salary and benefits. That's where the bulk of this money goes to. Schools are allowed to transfer a maximum of 15% from the education fund into the operations fund. Most schools have to do that because local tax revenue is not high enough to support the operational needs of the district. So you have to transfer a lot, meaning up to 15% of the revenue from the education fund into your operations to help keep the budget balanced. Okay, so continuing on with state school support, the basic tuition support grant is state-generated revenue based on student enrollment, often referred to as the average daily membership, or ADM. Really, the ADM in the most recent years has relied upon what we consider count days. There's 2 count days. There's one in the fall and there's one in the spring. The basic grant is broken down into really 3 components. You have the foundation, which is the basic amount per ADM. So each student has a dollar amount that comes with them, flat line, no matter what. Then you have what's considered the complexity index. That is really looking at, okay, I have a child coming into the district with variety of needs, and that's factored into with the SNAP program or TANF program and or foster kids. So there might be additional revenue that comes with a student based upon their needs that they have inside and or outside of school. Then you also have some additional funding that goes into that from the English language learners program to support the ELL population. Additionally, within the state school support, you also have the honors grant, you have the special education grant, and you have the CTE or career and technical education grant dollars that come into that. Those funds again generate into and support that education fund. State school support, so there are additional grants that go into this education fund. So you have the summer school grant, digital learning grant, secured school safety grant, 21st century grant, high ability grant, the TAG or teacher appreciation grant, alternative education grant, non-English speaking grant. We have our titles, Title 1, 2, 4 grants, special education grant, special education preschool grants. So there are a lot of different grants that we're constantly applying for additional grant opportunities to help benefit our students and our faculty and our school system whenever possible. Okay, from federal school support bucket of money, that revenue that we generate, again, you can see there are several different streams that fill into that bucket. You have the title grants, special education, migrant, homelessness, and school lunch programs. Those all feed into the federal school support bucket of money. Okay, so the rainy day fund is not a required fund to have in the state of Indiana. It is a good idea for school corporations to have this. I believe here at Mrs. Sinowell, we've had this now for, I believe, 4 years at this point in time. It's an emergency or savings fund for the district for those unexpected or unforeseen things that happen. So we transfer at the end of the year, we transfer for any surplus money we have into the operation or from the operations fund and or education fund into the rainy day fund to help us save or budget and or plan for unforeseen things, or to also plan for things that we may be foreseeing that we just have to save up the money to be able to pay for it. So what is the rainy day fund support? I talked about this a little bit already, but really it's any unplanned for or non-budgeted expenses such as, hey, the roof unexpectedly failed, or we have a boiler or chiller that unexpectedly stopped working, or we have a major maintenance repair that we have to do with that, or we have a big project that's going to cost us $1 to $2 million that we don't have that within our operations budget to do right now, so we have to save the money within our rainy day fund to pay for within a year, 2 years, 3 years, or whatever the case may be. So it's really that emergency fund for us. Again, goes back to the rainy day. We want to have a rainy day fund in place to be able to support any sort of unforeseen things that happen or plan for a big project in the future. Okay, so reviewing the funds. So we talked about it already. Education fund, operations fund, debt service fund, rainy day fund. Those are all the funds that we generate or that we have here within the district. We generate revenue from local taxes that will feed into the operations and debt service fund. We get state and federal dollars that feed into our education fund. And again, the education fund is primarily for classroom expenditures. Operation fund is for those non-classroom expenditures. You think about superintendent's salaries, central office salaries, bus drivers, utilities, facilities, maintenance needs, any capital projects, purchasing buses. Debt service fund, think about that in terms of your mortgage payment. It comes out for us twice a year, and it's just annually paying back those obligation bonds, general obligation bonds, or any bonding that we've taken out to do any major renovations to schools or school improvements. Rainy day fund, again, it's funded with a surplus of money left over in the operations fund. It's to plan for those unforeseen expenses or to budget and plan for those big projects that are coming up down the line. So what impacts local school finances? A lot of things, all of them there. Enrollment's a big one. If enrollment drops down, we lose a lot of kids. That's going to be a big impact to our education fund. Um, if you're in a big TIF district or have a major impact with circuit breakers, that can be a big impact. How they fund, how they calculate the state funding, they do that on 2-year cycles. And it constantly changes. There's changes to the complexity index that impacts our education fund. And really big one is changes in law. Every 2 years they go through a biennium where the state adjusts their budget and where the priorities with those dollars are going to be spent. That really impacts us positively or negatively, and we have to adjust to whatever those changes in the law may be. So, some changes that happened in 2023 in the legislation that impacted us for fiscal years 2024 and 2025. First of all, you can see there was a 5.3% increase in 2024 for school funding from the state. There was a 1.8% increase for 2025. This added about $1.9 billion statewide in funding to K through 12 schools. Families were no longer charged textbook fees for students, so schools must share a pot of $160 million per year to make up for these fees. A good example is last year here at Mississippi, we had about what would have been charged is about $1 million to families. We were only reimbursed $300,000 from the state for what we would normally charge as $1 million. So that's a big hit on a district. I mean, we're taking a 70 cent on a dollar bath by that change in legislation. So that was one of the changes in legislation that really negatively impacts schools, and so it really did hit us hard. So we have to plan and adjust for that in the future years. So 2025 is a budget year that will determine funding for all public schools for the fiscal years 2026 and 2027 for all K through 12 education. And that legislation, we'll see how it comes out. Will there be additional increases that allow us to give staff raises? Will there not be? Will there be other legislative changes that occur that will make us have to adjust how we plan our budget and how we operate as a school district in a fiscally sound manner, but at the same time providing our students with the best opportunities for the best educational environment that they can have. Okay, so next I want to really talk about us here at Mississippi Community Schools, specifically in terms of our finances and our budget. These numbers are representative as of the end of July of 2024. We currently, as you can see right here, have a cash balance of $7,884,544. Go down our funds here. So first, with the debt service fund, you'll see that we have a budget or appropriation of $2,496,685. That's what we are budgeted to spend for fiscal year 2024. Up to July, we have spent or encumbered 50% of that, leaving us with a cash balance of $890,425 in that account. So there are guidelines from the DLGF on how much you should have spent month by month. By July, or 7 months into the budget year, we would expect to not have spent more than 58%. That kind of is a gauge to keep us on track. Hey, we're spending too much, or hey, we're really good here. We're ahead of the game. So you'll see right there, debt service, we're where we need to be. Education fund, we're slightly above at 62%. We have obviously that's our biggest budget item, a little over $17 million for our education fund budget for the year, with a cash balance of about $2.6 million in that fund. The operations fund, again, this is one that's generated with local tax dollars. We plan to spend for the fiscal year of 2024 almost $5.8 million. Up to July, we have spent 53% of that budget, and we still have a cash balance of $893,123. And that rainy day, or that savings account, emergency fund, as I like to call it, there is an appropriation of a little over $1 million in there. And again, those are projects that we planned. They're not the unforeseen projects, but the projects that we planned for this year to pay for out of rainy day. And the rainy day, Jill Townsend, our CFO, she's done assistant superintendent CFO. She's done a fantastic job of really working to put money aside for bigger projects for the district. And we're sitting at about almost $3.5 million in the rainy day fund. So that kind of breaks down the funds where we are sitting as of the end of July here at Mississinawa for the year of 2024. Okay, so tax rate's a big one. People focus on tax rates, but it can be a little bit misleading, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. Here at Mississinawa Community School Corporation in 2020, our tax rate was $1.51 per $100 of assessed valuation of property. 2021, it was $1.50, 2022, $1.44, 2023, $1.42, 2024, $1.48, 2025, $1.37. You're like, well, why does it move? Why does it fluctuate from one year to the next? And really, I want to point to this one right here for this upcoming year. This is an anticipated tax rate for us for 2025. It's not set, but we're anticipating to be $1.37. That's largely due to we have seen a 12% increase in our net assessed value, which is really good for the taxing district. That means our property values are increasing, which is a good thing. We want property values to increase. It benefits homeowners when they look to resell their property. It benefits the district in terms of generating additional tax levy to help support our programs on there. So the other thing you got to think about is these tax rates, again, feed and funnel into two funds for us. It funds our operations account, and it funds our debt service account. So it's basically funding things that you physically see here going on. Going into a little bit more specifically, we take out, people ask, why do you take out bonds? Why do you have a debt service fund? Because if we didn't reissue bonds, you would see that tax rate drop from one year. It would drop from, let's say, $1.50 down to 90 cents for a year. And then we'd have to take out a bond maybe in the future, and then people would see their tax rates jump $1 or $1.50 more. So the goal for schools is to always try to maintain as even as a tax rate as possible. And really, like we're taking out a GO bond at the end of this year to compensate for old debt that we're paying off. But even by doing that, with the increase of the assessed valuation this year, we're still going to see an 11-cent drop on our tax rate, which is good for our tax-paying community. And so we try to be fiscally responsible with our community's tax dollars as we maintain our buildings, purchase new buses, maintenance buses, and we pay our staff the way we need to. So yeah, that's just kind of where we fall here at Mississinawa Community Schools with our current tax rates. Okay, spend a few minutes here just talking about the 2023-2024 data. Here at Mississinawa, we had 1,569 in-district students that attended Mississinawa. We received $7,250.45 per student for state support that goes directly into our education fund. That totaled right at $11.3 million of funding into our education fund. Again, that's state support dollars feeding into our education fund, which again goes into direct support of students in terms of your instructional staffing. Here at Mississinawa, we had 713 out-of-district students. That means they were supposed to attend a different school, but chose to come to Mississinawa. We again received $7,250.45 per student for state support that goes directly into our education fund for those out-of-district students. That totaled almost $5.2 million of funding for our education fund, so making up approximately 1/3 of our funding for the education fund. Here at Mississinawa, we only had 98 of our in-district students that chose to transfer to another public school, and 15 of our in-district students that chose to transfer to a non-public school. So we had 113 total students that were in-district students that chose to not attend Mississinawa Community Schools, but we received 713 out-of-district students that chose and thought our school system was a better fit for them. Our out-of-district school students make up approximately 31%, or exactly 31.2% of the total revenue that goes into our education fund. So people ask all the time, well, why do you accept out-of-district students? And we're working on cleaning up that process a little bit more and being a little bit more stringent on that. But the fact of the matter is when that's a third of our education revenue, that it would mean that we would have to cut over $5 million from our education budget, which means we would lose a third of our educational staffing, a third of our programming. And so that's something we don't feel is beneficial for our students. But there are some things as a district and as a community that we can work to clean up. And I'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. So again, changes for the going into the 24-25 school year, talking about out-of-district students, we've done a really good job of attracting out-of-district students to Mississinawa Community Schools. And it's largely in part due to the great staff that we have, the great programming that we're running from early kindergarten all the way up to seniors in high school. Phenomenal staffing, phenomenal programs for students to take advantage of. One thing that we're working on is we're working on a new screening process starting there in the summer. This summer, we started already, where we would screen out-of-district students prior to admitting them into our district. If students have excessive absences and or disciplinary concerns, they will not be accepted at Mississinawa Community School Corporation. If students are already current out-of-district students attending our corporation, and while they're with us, they have excessive absences and or major disciplinary concerns as it relates to the required Indiana code for out-of-district students, they will not be permitted back for the 25-26 school year. So we need to maintain and increase our out-of-district student enrollment, but we have to hold those students accountable, the families accountable, to meet our standards here at Mississinawa Community Schools to remain a member of our tribe at this district. And so those are going to be high standards that we expect them to meet, to exceed, if they want to continue to be students within our district. And I think we're offering a lot of great programs here at Mississinawa. I think we're going to continue to build upon those programs. We have a great staff, we have a great community, but the bottom line is that if students are going to come to us from out of district, they're going to have to do things the way we want to do things within Mississinawa Community School Corporation. Okay, so a couple resource links. You won't be able to click on these during the video, but I will post this as a PDF document. As the PDF document, you can click on these different links. You'll see the 2023 through 2025 Digest of Public School Finance in Indiana from the biennium. That talks about all the legislative changes and financing that goes into public schools. There's the DUAB website, there's DLGF website, and the Indiana State Board of Accounts. A lot of good resources there if you really want to dig in to public school financing. Okay, so I just want to take a moment and just thank you guys for your time. Please feel free to reach out to me if you need further clarification on public school financing, or if you have any questions at all. There's my contact information. Again, please feel free to reach out. We're going to be doing some more of these videos. We'll get some more information out there related to the 2025 fiscal year budget for our district. We're going to talk a lot about our facilities and how we need to monitor our facilities, what adjustments we need to make with our facilities going forward, because that always impacts our taxpayers, that impacts our community. And so we want to have those conversations. We want to be responsible with our taxpayers' dollars, but at the same point in time, we want our students to receive the best education possible. They deserve to be attending in the best educational environment as possible, and our staff here has done a great job of maintaining our buildings and facilities. But what can we do as a community, as an organization, to take Mississinawa Community Schools to the next level with our facilities, with our programming, to make us, again, just a state-of-the-art public school within the state of Indiana, and really take it to the next level. So, hey, appreciate you guys taking the time. Sorry for a lengthy video. Thank you for sticking with me to watch this. Feel free to reference it. Please feel free to contact me at any time. I love talking to our community members about Mississinawa Community Schools, the tax base, any ideas that you may have as well. So lastly, go Indians.